In the main square of the city, a huge crowd gathered. They all shouted loudly that the girl who stood on the podium should be killed. They thought the girl was a devil in the form of a virgin. Her name was Kiira Farvis. The king went to her and told her that she was a sinner, that she had fooled the whole empire. She must repay her crime in full. He ordered her to be killed tomorrow. The emperor's daughter, who was also there, asked her father why he came so close to her. This girl could be very dangerous. The girl who was accused of witchcraft wanted to say something, but could not because her mouth was tied. The emperor's daughter turned to her as well and grinned wickedly. The two of them seemed to know something most in this empire do not. In the dungeon, the princess came to the girl. Tomorrow, the execution would take place. One last time, she would show her something. She used her magic. The girl, who was bound, saw it. It looked like drops of water, but it was the spirits of water. Just as the princess thought, this girl sees her spirits. It is proof that she is the native daughter of a foolish man. Pure-blooded, noble Kiira Farvis ended up being the sinner, and she became the sinner. The Grand Duke's fake daughter. But what if it really was a lie? And in fact, she was real. The princess scoffed at her. After saying goodbye, she said they would see each other tomorrow at the execution. The next morning, the girl was led to the scaffold. Today she would be beheaded. Everyone around shouted for her to be executed immediately. Later, after the Grand Duke's title was topped by a new successor, the status of the new duke's title suddenly fell. In the near future, a great crisis would come to the whole continent. They must remember the prophecy of the shield salvation from disaster. They will have but one spirit-blessed child. The family of the spirits of water, chosen by the goddess, House Farvis. The daughters of House Farvis, coming of age, can hear and feel the great spirit of Beatrice. The gift of an unknown demon brings rain to the withered continent. For this, the people have nicknamed her the Spirit. Kiira is the first daughter of Ludwig Farvis. According to prophecy, she was considered the only gifted one. The girl grew up a sincere and kind lady, and she desired only one thing, her father's love. Kiira, who lost her mother at an early age, naturally desired her father's love very much. What could she do to make her father love her? Kiira tried to understand what she had done wrong and was always hard on herself. She tried to learn all the material as quickly as possible, to be a worthy daughter of her house. The whole mansion admired the little lady. No one had ever met a more talented child before. His Excellency would be pleased too, the maids told her. But could she receive praise this time? When she ran to her daddy, she wanted him to see her results. But he coldly told her that he had more important things to do now, and if she wanted to, she could report her results later. The girl once again apologized for distracting him from his work and left. The Duke, in truth, never even hugged his daughter. When she walked from His Highness, she would stand on the stairs. Kiira thought if she fell down the stairs and hurt herself, maybe he would come to see her. She rushed down. The servants immediately began to help her and carried her to her room. In the morning, when she awoke, there was a knock at her door. Though her whole body ached, she happily got up, because she thought it was her father who had come to visit her. But no, it was the rumors that had come to treat her wounds. In the end, he never came. The girl hoped that he loved her. She wanted her father to look at her with love just once, just once. So she lived for 18 years, trying to gain her father's acceptance. Most likely, she would have lived her whole life that way, if that girl hadn't shown up. One day at a ball, the eldest daughter of the Duchess of Rowena, Cosette, appeared. She introduced herself to the king and called him father. It is a pleasure to meet you. I am the daughter of the Duchess Rowena. Your eldest daughter Cosette. The king didn't understand what she was saying. Does she mean that she is his daughter? Exactly, answered the girl. But didn't Rowena Weinberg die after her banishment, being barren? Count Isaac, her older brother, was absent and did not appear here for 15 years. Where did the child come from? There had been rumors earlier that in fact the Marquise of Edinburgh, soon to be framed, wasn't she? I don't know if she's exactly the daughter of Duchess Rowena, but she's an exact replica of the Grand Duke. Kiira wondered if she had a sister, and a part-time second princess. And if she is his daughter, can she prove it? The girl said that if His Highness would give her the opportunity, she would certainly not refuse it. Then he said that he would give her such an opportunity. The only question she wanted to know the answer to was what kind of man her father was. From that day on, the girl's familiar world began to change. One day the two girls were having breakfast together. Cosette, who came in later, said hello to her sister. The girl asked Kiira, she woke up so early, did she sleep well? Yesterday the butler showed her to her new room. The bed was very soft. New princess told her how she felt. She had never seen such a comfortable bed before. The beds here were better than the ones in her uncle's house. The girl wanted to offer to go for a walk together tomorrow, but then she accidentally pushed the glass and it broke. Water spilled onto the floor and onto her dress. Cosette immediately began to apologize, and in the confusion she broke a plate as well. She apologized to the princess for making trouble. Kiira calmly said that she would order the butler to have a teacher of etiquette assigned to her, so that such unpleasant situations would not happen again. Getting up from the table, she said that she had had enough and would be the first to leave. The maid who came up to Cosette said she would prepare another breakfast for her. The girl replied that she would eat later. First she would like to apologize to Kiira, since she had ruined her breakfast. The girl got up from the table and ran after her sister and offered to go together. The maids were discussing among themselves about the new princess. Do they think this girl will be a good person? She treats them with kindness, even though they are maids. Lady Kiira has a high title, it will be difficult for her to get close to her. Even harder than she thinks. The longer you look at her, the more she reminds you of the Grand Duke. Who is she? A blood relative who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. With a face that reminds one of her father, moreover, she seems to have grown up as a noble lady. Kiira had nothing to worry about. She was the one who was her father's biological daughter. The woman of House Farvis that was born with the strength of spirit. Kiira pondered while exercising her sword. No matter what happens, only one daughter with the gift will be born. And since one daughter for an entire generation will still be their salvation, the second is a counterfeit that will bring chaos. If Cosette contacts the spirit before she does. At this time, Cosette approached her. She told her that she had picked the flowers because they were incredibly beautiful. And what was she doing here all alone? She said she had been practicing with her sword, but she was done. She's on a break now, so she wants to rest. Cosette noticed that her sister was acting unfriendly, so she asked her, why is she acting so unfriendly to her? After all, she only wants them to be friends. Kiira replied that she doesn't know her at all. She has no desire to be friends with her. She was about to leave, but Cosette said after her, words the girl never expected to hear from her at all. She doesn't want to be friends with her because she's not her father's real daughter? Poor Kiira. It's not her fault that she was born of her mother's affair with another man. Even if she has dirty blood running through her veins. It doesn't bother her at all. Even though she kicked her mother out of the palace. After that, she became a duchess and seduced her father. How unforgivable, but it is not her sin, but her mother's. She should not feel guilty for her parents. Kiira could not listen any further to such derogatory information about her parents. She put her sword to Cosette's neck and said, "And if she continues to insult her mother, she will cut off her head right there, so that she can no longer smile so snidely." The maids saw what was happening and immediately rushed to the girls. They didn't understand how the princess could do such a thing. How she could point a sword at someone who had come to her to apologize. Cosette pretended that she only wanted them to be friends. She asked her forgiveness. She never thought she'd feel that way about it. Even though they were half-siblings, she still thought of her as her sister. She didn't want to antagonize her, so she wouldn't interfere with her rest anymore. Kiira understood that Cosette was only pretending. How could she consider a sister the person who dared to insult her mother? The maid saw blood on Cosette's body. Even though she said she was. It is all right, but the maid still insisted that a physician be summoned immediately. Let the maids say that they would leave with Cosette right away. Turning around, she looked sneeringly at Kiira. In the evening, His Highness was in his study remembering his beloved. When they would have a child. If a son was born, she would like to call him Christian, and if a daughter, then Cosette. She was uncomfortable talking about such things, so she asked that he not tell anyone else. It would be their secret. The king could not make a decision immediately, but the face of this child. Suddenly, there was a knock at his door. It was Princess Kiira. As is the rule of etiquette, she said hello to her father and curtsied. The king addressed her. He was notified of what had happened at noon. She pointed her sword at Cosette. Just as she wanted to answer him something, he continued. I understand that she is not happy about the arrival of this child. He could understand that. But at least she could have restrained herself and not made a scene in front of the maids. She grew up as a commoner, unlike her, and has no skills in etiquette and manners. Now she must think hard before she does anything. Then the girl said that Cosette had insulted her mother. She said that her mother had a lover. She could bear to be insulted, but she would never forgive someone who defamed her late mother's name. The king told her with a calm face that they would soon find out whether Cosette was right or not. The girl apologized and walked out. As she walked down the corridor, she remembered her mother's last moments. Don't cry, sweet Kiira. No matter what others say, know that you are Farvis, the only nymph. Live confidently, as your heart desires. The girl fell to the floor and began to cry. Why, the one who has been acting as your daughter all this time is not Cosette. Why does His Highness doubt me, and even my mother? Suddenly, Cosette came out of the door. She asked Kiira what she was doing here. Why is she sitting in the hallway crying alone? She would have liked to give her a hand, but Kiira did not want to accept help from her. Instead, she slapped her on the arm. She knew that Cosette lived in the other wing of the building, and after calming down a little, the girl asked her. What was she doing at this hour, in the middle of the night, in the main house? Cosette replied that, as of today, she was living here. Is there anything surprising about that? Normally, the heirs live in the main building. Her father also gave her permission to do so. She will share the third floor with Kiira. Kiira is very angry with her. She is the eldest daughter of the Farvis house. Not this impostor who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. At these words, Cosette laughed. She starts to lose her temper so quickly, what a shame. I will always be there for her. From now on, I will take everything he belongs to you," said in Cosette's ear, and walked on, along the corridor. A short time later, Joseph, the deputy head, arrived at the castle. He was to report to her on the situation with the enchanted beast of the north. The evil spirit did not pose much of a threat. A fourth squad of knights had been sent there, but they were asking for reinforcements. Kiira asked him if they had a plan of action. The deputy replied that since Denol Canyon was nearby, they had decided to ambush them there. Kiira was a little unhappy about this plan, since Denol Canyon is an ancient place. Moreover, it is one of the Emperor's treasures, and they would be in trouble if the place were destroyed. She asked to use other options for an ambush. Across some distance, there is a forest, but the mountains in that area are extremely dangerous. Landslides are not uncommon, Joseph reported to her. Then the princess asked about the risks. She was told that the risks of an operation in that location were below average. After a little thought, she ordered that the plan be followed. The man wanted to object, but Kiira stopped him. Then he obeyed the order. And they also needed to allocate funds for the annual charity gala. The maids who heard this conversation discussed it among themselves. What did she do to get this position? She hadn't even taken the entrance exams. She had no right to call herself head of the knights. Just because of the family tradition that passed the title on to her by inheritance. From generation to generation, every child of House Farvis, upon reaching the age of 18, must hold the office of head of the Knights of House Farvis for 3 years. So it's usually the deputy head who decides everything, the head herself just for show. Lady Kiira is completely clueless. She can never prove herself as head in the case. They felt sorry for Sir Joseph, to whom the label of deputy stuck. He has enough experience and skill for that. Does this wench have a shred of shame? Just remember the events of this morning. She looks on with that cold, arrogant face and orders us around. How dare some fake princess like her open her mouth? The other maid told her not to talk like that. It's all still unproven. If you don't have enough proof, just look at her face, the first maid said indignantly. Anyway, when it will be revealed that she really is a fake princess, the maid will trample her arrogant face with her own feet. She will wash our clothes, contemptuously said the maid, carrying the dirty clothes to the laundry. Suddenly, unexpectedly, Milady's voice was heard from behind. She asked the maid if she would be responsible for her words. The other maids told her to hurry up and apologize to her mistress at once. But in spite of their pleas, she stood her ground. She asked the princess, had she done something wrong? That question put Kiira out of her mind. In any case, she is not the great duke's daughter. After these words, Kiira did not hold back and slapped the maid across the face. She is still the lady of this house. On that basis, she has the right to punish servants for disrespect. She summoned the guards to lock her in the dungeon. A woman's groaning could be heard in the garden, so Cosette and her maids came to see what was going on. She saw her maid Mina being beaten by the guards. How could Kiira do such a thing? Cosette asked the princess. She told her that the maid she brought to the castle was disrespectful. She deserved proper punishment. But even so, the paper did not understand the need for such cruel methods. Kiira explained to her that a commoner like her had no idea, and the rules of aristocrats. The maid begged Lady Cosette for help. But there was nothing she could do, for this is one of the laws of the world of aristocracy. In the evening, when his creatures arrived at the palace, his 2 daughters rushed to greet him. Gazetta threw herself into her father's arms and begged him not to throw her maid Mina out. After listening to her, he turned to Kiira. Why did she punish this maid and want to kick her out? Kiira said that the maid had been disrespectful to her, and she punished her properly. Then Cosette spoke up in defense of her maid. Though her maid had made a mistake, it was too cruel to give her 1,000 strokes with a stick and kick her out of the palace. The emperor agreed that the punishment was too harsh. A punishment of 1,000 strokes could kill a man. Since she did so, she must have had a good reason? The girl said that she heard insults to which she could not help but respond. She didn't even want to repeat those curses with her mouth. Pointing to the two maids, she said that these two were with her and they had heard everything. They would be able to repeat what was said. The emperor ordered them to tell the maids everything they had heard. They fell on their knees before His Highness and asked for forgiveness. Glancing among themselves, they said that Lady Mina had said about the princess that she was very cold-blooded. Also, it was very difficult for them to serve for the lady. That was all they could say to the emperor. The princess was furious, but the maids, because of what they said, only a small part of what the maids said to her. Turning back to the emperor and Cosette, she saw her sister's mocking gaze.